Good morning. A very warm welcome to all participants. Today, aside from the AAT community, we also have with us a number of colleagues of Dr. Bindu Lohani from different organizations who attend today the Distinguished Adjunct Seminar series. And also at the request of many who cannot make it to AAT, this seminar will be live broadcast. First, we are very delighted and honored to have with us our AAT Distinguished Adjunct Faculty, Dr. Bindu N. Lohani, who also served as the senior advisor. He will be sharing with us his knowledge and many years of experience to his talk, technological challenges and opportunities in addressing climate resilience smart cities. Before I introduce our speakers, please allow me to provide you some background of this Distinguished Adjunct Faculty initiative. After 55 years of operations last year, I felt that AAT was blessed with a large pool of highly respected former faculty who are still very active in all corners of this world. In fact, they have offered me to assist AAT whatever they can. And as a mechanism for their re-engagement with AAT, I have offered to appoint them Distinguished Adjunct Faculty, DAF. This honorary title, Distinguished Adjunct Faculty, is bestowed to individuals who contribute voluntarily to enhance the work of the Institute. Central to the plan was that our former faculty could maintain their professional affiliation with AAT and serve as our academic ambassador. My call last year to all ex-faculty members of AAT to re-engage has been extremely well received based on the high volume of positive response around the world. In conjunction with this DAF initiative, we have also launched a series of AAT Distinguished Adjunct Faculty Research Seminar. And the seminar today is the fourth in the series. Now, I am sure most of us here know Dr. Bindu Lohani very well. So please allow me to introduce his background only very briefly, especially focusing on his connection with AAT. As you know, Dr. Lohani has just retired from Asian Development Bank, ADB, after serving ADB for close to 30 years. With his last position as Vice President for Knowledge Management and Sustainable Development. Dr. Bindu Lohani holds a doctorate degree in environmental engineering from AIT and once served as chairman and associate professor of the Division of Environmental Engineering at AIT prior to joining ADB. He is also today a member of AIT Board of Trustees. Basically, he is my boss. Professionally, Dr. Lohani is a member of the National Academy of Engineering of the U.S. and is a diplomat of American Academy of Environmental Engineers and fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science Council. I wish also to take this opportunity to express our sincere thanks to Dr. Lohani for his great vision and initiation in the establishment of a planned regional research center focusing on climate change issue in Asia. This center will soon be known as Climate Change Asia at AIT, CCA at AIT. This is indeed very relevant and timely, especially after the Paris COP21. I'm sure Dr. Lohani will be elaborating on this in his talk. Now, let me just give the floor to Dr. Lohani for his talk. May I present Dr. Lohani, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Warsak. I need to recognize the chairman of the board. You said the boss, he's the real boss. And really we're very happy to work for Dr. Subin as the chairman of the board and Dr. Warsak as the president. I also want to really thank you for the excellent leadership you've been providing at the Asian Institute of Technology. It always has difficult times. At the difficult time, we need very excellent people, and thank you very much for doing that on behalf of AIT and AIT alumni. Well, Excellencies, faculties, I see two, Dennis Borgado, I see Detlef Kamayer, two of my earlier colleagues. Good to see you here. Faculties, students, ladies and gentlemen, and especially I was told, the Winter School of UNEP. You really have brought winter, I think, yesterday and today. You've done a great job. Thank you very much. Well, it's really an honor for me to speak in this auditorium as someone who had been here as a student, who had been as a faculty, and in many capacities. And I'm always very happy to come here and to share views, and I have been coming for a long, long time. First and foremost, why did I choose this topic? There are many topics in which I could speak. This is urban, this is cities, this is climate, resilience. There's a lot of technology, challenge, opportunities. There's a lot of words. So I'm going to come to you why I chose you. But before that, let me tell you what I'm going to speak today on. I'm going to divide this talk into small 5 parts. Hopefully only within 1 hour, so that we have about 30 minutes for question and answer. First, I think it is very important to look at our cities, Asian cities, what they mean to us, socially, economically, climate-wise, and resource-wise. Second, although we may know this, it is good to once again refresh our mind. What are the current and the future challenges of these Asian cities, or faced by these Asian cities? Third, specifically for today, for a technology institute like AIT, what are the technological challenges? Of course, there are many. I might pick a few. And the fourth, the role of technology itself and how opportunities could be availed at the time when the world is talking about climate change. And finally, some of my own thoughts, how we could look at this forward, or way to take it forward. And finally, some Q&A. That's the most interesting part always to me. So first on the Asian cities. If you look globally, urban areas account for more than 80% of the global GDP. 80% of the economy globally is in cities. And if you look at one of the research report, it says if you look at just 600 cities globally, just 600, they account about 60% of the global GDP. So if we really want to see where the money is, it's there. 80% of the urban areas and 600 cities have 60% of the wealth. And 50% of these are in Asia. So this tells you that how important Asian cities are in terms of wealth and in future wealth. Look at the megacities. We're very much used to megacities. Megacities to me are cities with population more than 10 million. There are about 23 megacities. Bangkok is one. They account about 14% of the GDP. These 23 of them account about 14% of the GDP. But the research shows that in future, the percentage of the GDP contributed by these megacities will decline to about 10% by 2025. Why is that? It's because the remaining, if you say 623 megacities, the remaining is 577. So those 577 are the second-tier cities. These are cities like Chiang Mai, in Philippines, Cebu, and things, cities of that type. And they will account 50% of the global GDP by 2025. And that's how the economy will shift to these secondary cities. And out of these 577 secondary cities, two-thirds of that is approximately 406 or 407 of these will be the second-tier cities in Asia. So you can see the importance of these second-tier cities in Asia. By 2050, about 64% of the Asian population will be in the urban areas. So most people are going to be there. And half of the global GDP will be produced in Asia by 2050. So this is one of our ADB study called Asia 2050. I still say our, I'm out of ADB, 6 months away, but still, this was the study we did there. So now, no matter how we look at it, cities will be the places where Asians will live. This is where we will have our economic growth, and therefore we have no choice but to make it livable. We have to make this economically progressive, environmentally clean. You've got to make it smart, and on and on and on. Now, let me talk the cities and the climate change now. If we look again globally, urban areas account for about 70 to 75% of the global carbon emission. So if we have to solve global carbon issues, 70 to 75% is in the cities. And in Asia, our prediction is by 2050, 50% of the greenhouse gas will be emitted from Asian cities. And the Asian cities, if you look at globally, the vulnerable cities, we were doing this exercise about a year ago. Out of the 10 most vulnerable cities in the world, 7 of them are in Asia. By the way, that includes Dhaka, Manila, Bangkok, and Jakarta. So here is again the second case. Most of the emission will be in the city. So if you want to solve the climate change issues, it has to be in the city. It's estimated that some 238 million Asian urban poor will be affected, and they are under risk from climate change in the cities. And if we take the economic impacts, nowadays the impact of the climate change is translated in terms of the percentage GDP, and some of our studies earlier said it could be anywhere from 1% to 5% of the GDP, and in some cases even 10%. Some South Asian countries are about 8, 9, 10%. Now this is the reason why I said the climate change battle has to be fought in the cities. And hence the topic of my presentation, the cities, climate, resilient, we must make these cities. Cities are, again to repeat, where Asians will live, 65% of our people, could be 70. Cities are where our GDP will come from, 80% by 2050. Cities are where the greenhouse gas will be emitted, 50%. Cities are vulnerable, and we must make them, once again, to repeat, a livable, smart, green, clean, all the jargons, all the words that I've been using, we must do this. And that's hence the topic. My second topic is, what are some of the challenges faced by the Asian cities? These are very obvious. We've been facing this every day in the town. Now, let me mention a few of these. The first, something that bothers me, something that we have not been able to resolve, even with my 30 years' time in ADB working so much on the city, is the urban poor. We call the two faces of Asia. You go to any city, Bangkok, Manila, Jakarta, you will see pockets of cities which look like New York, which look like Washington, Europe. They're as good as anywhere in the world. But there is a huge segment of population which are living under $1 a day. They are extremely poor. And there are 200 out of 1.6 billion people who live in the cities today, 200 million of these people are in that condition. 200 million. And if you take the percentage, I want to mention the city, it could be anywhere from 30 to 50% of the population of the city are urban slums, living below $1 a day. To me, a city like that, so rich, so prosperous, this is simply unacceptable. So how to make this an inclusive development in the city is a challenge. And frankly, if I may mention further, it's projected that if we do nothing about the slum and poor issues, by 2050 we may have 1 billion people living in the slums. What kind of world that would be? I can't think of it. To me, it's unacceptable. The second issue is massive investment needs. In ADB, we calculated some number and said for the next 10 years, we might need $8 trillion for infrastructure investment, water, energy, urban cities. And in 2006, we took a quick look, and it showed that $30 billion per year of fund needed for urban infrastructure has not materialized. This was 2006. $30 billion we need, and that hasn't come in. The public resources available for this is only about half. The need from the need, what is actually available is only half. The second half, everybody talks, the private sector resources should be mobilized, but frankly, it has not been mobilized. So there is a new opportunity and the new challenge on how do you get this private sector to come in. And I think it should be possible. And let me give you one example. A city like Manila, it's good to use a city where you're not speaking. Dennis would know this better. About 30 to 35% of the national GDP is created just in that city. So 1/3 of the national wealth in that city, so I get puzzled. If you have 1/3 the wealth, how come you don't have money to fix the infrastructure required? It's not a money issue, it is something else issue. That could be another topic for me someday. But all I'm saying is, we need to be able to be innovative enough, we need to have the right kind of governance structure to be able to use the money generated in the city for the people in the city, because that is possible, but that's not happening. The third, very familiar to all of us, is the enormous strain on transport and mobility. I don't need to explain the traffic in Bangkok, Manila, Jakarta, everywhere else. What is that? That's an indication that we haven't thought this through well. I'm not using any slides today, but I have one slide which shows that in spite of all the talk about that we should build public transport, trains, metros, etc., which is all true, I look when I was there, be the trend. In the next 10 years, you don't see the sign that the public investment is going up in railways and metros, but the motorization is going up like this. So I don't think we have been making any change in the thinking on motorizations. The cars have just increased so much, and the investment in the public sector, public transport, metros, railway, is very, very small. It's not happening. So then I say that this next 10 years is a good opportunity for us to change that paradigm, which is probably the best thing I can say at the moment. To me, when you look, today, again, using Manila, we have built metro. We drop from point A to point B, and when the people get dropped to point B, they have to wait another 2 hours for the bus. And what have we done? Because people want to go home, people don't want to wait in the bus station. So thinking that how to provide the transport to the last mile has to be the thinking in any transport planning. I don't think we've done that. To me, in Asia, after looking at all the Asian cities, my favorite is Japan. When I come out of the train station, within 5 minutes, either I can walk if it's a short distance, or I can take a taxi, or I can get another train, or I can get bus or something. I don't need to wait for 30 minutes. And this is the mindset change. Transportation is not, thinking of transportation is not building road or transport or railway or buses or rapid bus. It's the mindset change is transportation is for moving people and goods. So I need to move these people because they want to go home. And I must have that intermodal connection ready. And that kind of thinking is lacking. I won't mention more challenges, I think, otherwise we'll go on more. Let me move now to the technological scientific challenge in the cities. What do we got? Those of us technocrats, and let me mention 3 for the reason of time. We have to make decisions based on facts, based on data. We're not politicians because I like to do this, I'll do it. But technocrats needs data, facts, justify and say, this is why I'm doing it. Now let's take your urban infrastructure. Technocrats, people like you, me, many others. If I'm designing, let me give an example of, let's say I want to design a levee for a flood. What do? I will take a 1 in 100 years flood. I have to go look at the past data. But with the climate change, those past data are not going to be the data which will be useful for our future prediction because the regime has changed. I was talking to Professor Babel, he told me in Bangkok, 1 in 50 years inundation of the flood. It used to be 1 in 50 years. If you put the climate change modeling, I hope his modeling is right, even if it's not right, just for the sake of illustration, he says now it will be 1 in 15 years. Now those of us who have to do the design, we know, the enormous amount of cost that will be involved in doing this. But when you talk to the politician, they don't understand. I was talking, even in the bank, to some decision makers, finance ministry people. I said, this is a 1 in 100 years flood. When we had flood in Manila, they said, well, that's good. Now we don't have to worry for 99 years. I mean, look at that. I mean, this is the kind of situation we are. And now with 1 in 15, they may still say, oh, never mind, I can wear for the next 14 years. It is. The enormous amount of economic implication, design of the infrastructure, and it may be tomorrow, that 15 years. So I think we have this kind of... The second thing the climate change has brought in challenge to the scientists like us or the technocrat like us is, we have to be thinking about the short-term impact, like flash flood, which the climate change will have it more frequent. and the long-term impact, like the sea level rise. We never include that. When I was studying, when I was designing something, infrastructure in the cities, I never thought of sea level rise in the future. Now I have to design the flash flood, which could happen one in 15 years. And I can also be thinking about the long-term impact of sea level rise. People who have money sometimes think okay, I'm going to take care of this by making huge investment. In Netherlands now, I was told, they design for 1 in 1,000 years. Okay, I do this, I have money, then I'm below the sea, let me take care of it. But that's not always the scientific way of doing. In short, what I'm trying to say is the way that we used to do business in the past by looking at the past historical data and projecting for the future is not going to be the way we could think anymore. We need to be able to design those and make decisions under uncertainty. And therefore, my view is the main challenge for technocrats are those of probability, risk, and ensuring resilience in project design. How do I still make resilience in those infrastructures? This is a new type of challenge. I think our engineering manuals didn't have them. Still probably doesn't have it now. The second technical challenge is the sectoral linkages and handling the interlinked multiple failures. And just again, let me do one example. Let's take flood as an example. If we have flood today, that could affect your electricity. Electricity is on a smart grid, the ICT system might fail, and then you may have the transport which may not run. Suddenly you have a city, nothing works. And you have 15 million people in dark with flood. Can you think of 15 million people in the middle, in flood, no light, no energy, no transport? What will happen in the middle of the night? But the point I'm making is we need to be able to therefore think, even if you're designing for, as a water person or a transport person, you need to think of the multiple failures that could happen. And this we did not do in the past. Now we need to do that. The third, and I'll mention only 3. I got about 20 of these, but the third is impacts and risk of climate change are uneven within a country. We know the IPCC data. Bangladesh might be flooded like this. Bangkok may happen this one. But even within the country, it's changing. So uneven impact within the countries. We need to therefore, the technological solutions for managing climate risk require a sound evidence base and good understanding of the likely climate impacts in specific locations and on specific types of project. Now the real example again, let's say I'm going to do a hydropower design. And I find the best, I shouldn't be saying this in front of Dr. Subin, who is the world's expert on this, but still, let's say if I find the best hydrological site for building a hydropower. Then we run the climate change, Professor Barbell's models and others, and says, hey, we're going to not have enough water in this location. You're going to have to move. Or you need the bigger catchment. Unless we have these IPCC data, the broad data, or the country data brought down to that local level, it's not very useful for investors like me. And this was our biggest challenge at the Asian Development Bank. How do we translate and bring this at the local level so that I can incorporate them into the project design? I mean, this is a huge challenge. Huge challenge. And also, what if someone does these models made a mistake? I'm paying for it. It just reminds me of I don't know whether you remember the Y2K. When the year 2000 came in, everybody thought the computer all might rust. There was about $1 trillion consultants made the money, nothing happened. I'm also equally worried about that we do so much modeling, so much data, and nothing happened. So this is where the probability, risk, and decision-making under uncertainty came in. To me, the way I've been doing it, if it is 10% risk, I take it. If it is 50% risk, then if it is 5% risk, very easy. I take it. 10%, I take it. 90%, no, I don't want to take the risk. I'll do it. What happens at 50%? I had actually a project in IDB where it's about 50%. What do I do? The proposal came to me, say, we need, sir, $30 more million, so we need to make a reservoir bigger because there's not going to be water by 2050. I said, everybody approved, but I said, no. I'm going to give you a piece of land to build reservoir. If it's needed, we'll build it future because we have no shortage of money. But let me find that out 10 years later. So we need to make decisions of that type, every day taking this into account. The point I'm making is we need this data at the ground level. And the related point is, well, there are available quantitative models, etc., but we need to continuously improve them to make it work and verify on the ground. Something we shouldn't forget is this will have additional cost. And based on our experience in many of our projects, this could be anywhere from 1% to 10%, let's say average 5% cost. Now I have to go and tell the clients and the government, hey, you have a $200 million project, by the way, 5% of that cost addition you have to bear. And suddenly I hear a red herring. I'm not going to pay for this adaptation. I didn't create it. Please find me this grant money, etc., etc. So we get into different kind of analysis, but it must be done. And then my last point is, the COP gives us another challenge in some way. You know, the Paris Agreement full of INDCs, technology transfer, mitigation, adaptation, economic losses, capacity building, the whole lot of things. To me, it's a beautiful document produced by the diplomats. Now, people like us, technocrats, need to translate them what that means in the real world. And that itself is a challenge, but also an opportunity. And that's why what Dr. Varasak said, one area on capacity building on climate change Asia at AIT, I think is a good idea. Now let me move to the next word on opportunities. In the opportunities, I'm going to talk about, again, a few examples. Let me, for this time, take the energy sector. I talked too much about water. Professor Babel influenced me, maybe. Now the energy sector. Very simple. We have so much opportunity in some low-hanging fruits. Energy efficiency. Huge in the building. Go to Bangkok City, anywhere, everywhere. I see it here. Everywhere the energy efficiency possibility in buildings, industries, transport sector. Huge business, untapped business. The next area of business is, and this is where I sometimes argue with the global people, there are people in the world who think you should do nothing with the coal-fired power plant. But the fact is most of the power energy today still comes from the fossil fuel. In spite of the increase in the renewable energy, still very small. Most of it is fossil fuel. One business which exists now is, if you look India, China, Thailand, anywhere, the power plants which were built in the past, coal-fired power plants or fossil fuel power plants, are all on subcritical. Today, we have the opportunity of creating that into supercritical. The efficiency will increase, pollution will be less, but there are people who still think this is not a good project. I think this is a good opportunity how to turn them into supercritical. Can you imagine the billions and trillions of business in this area? Well, we may not do it, but there is that business available. The third, simple, we see every day renewable. It's estimated that in 2014, the global investment was about $270 billion in renewable. The prediction is by 2030, it will be $400 billion. I was looking at the chart last night. how the number of jobs increase in the renewable. Huge. But for those people who know how to do things, with skills though, not just the degree, skills. And so this is another field where we can do lots of opportunities. The fourth area which is coming into discussion is the oil price is very low at the moment. This is, to me, the best time to reduce subsidy if you have them. And most of the countries have some kind of subsidy in the fossil fuel. I would really like the Japan kind of model where they will create an environmental tax or a carbon tax on fuel and use that money for doing something else. This can be done by the country. It is encouraged into the Paris Agreement, but it's something for the country to do that. Another area of business which I see coming up in a big way is the West, converting West to energy. I said cities are the place where people will live. This is where the West will be generated. This West turning into, not as a garbage disposal site, into a garbage disposal site, turning them to energy is a huge business and the opportunity. So all of these needs a lot of technocrats, a lot of scientists, a lot of can-do people, a lot of people like us, and I think which also mean that it's a lot of business. Now, related to that, I once sat with this National Academy of Engineers in the US. There were a lot of people they collected all over the world to see what would be the challenges of 21st century engineering challenge and what can be done, what's doable. This is the same kind of people who several years ago said, we should be able to fly. This based on the science we have, and somebody will make it happen. So they came up with several ideas. There are three things that become important from that report. One, they talk about solar energy, which we know by now. But what are the issues with solar energy? There are three critical issues. One is the efficiency issue. If only you could increase the efficiency, which is about 21% today, to 40%, it'll all be viable. In the lab, they can do that. And they told us it's the second is the economy, and the third is the storage. If only we could store energy, problem is solved. We have not been able to store very much. So there's a lot of research that's happening in storage, which is battery, all kind of battery we saw. That's why we saw lithium battery for the computer, on, and more research happening. When I went to see Toshiba, to Sony, in Samsung, they all are working on the battery. This could be hoping that they could do some breakthrough. So although we have brought the cost of the solar down, we have not brought it to the level to make it economical. Still, Thailand needs a feed-in tariff to make it happen, and many other countries. So the idea is someday we have to make it cost-effective. And three things, again, efficiency increase, storage, and the cost. The second to me is, I'm a strong believer that someday we'll be able to make carbon sequestration and storage, CCS, possible. Today, it has not been proven at the large scale, although individual components like capture, transport, and sequestration are possible depending upon the location. But to do this, CCS, which means capturing carbon, transporting them, and disposing of the right person, still is a site issue, not very cost effective. But there's a future on this. I think globally, if I remember, there are 12 carbon capture and storage units being tested. There's only one in developing countries being pilot tested today, which is in China. With the help of ADB, they're doing some studies. Even that shows not economical at the moment. And the third, which is happening and which will happen more, is the efficiency of the electric and the hybrid cars will improve. I think it's not very far. And that could be something the engineers and technocrats have not figured out yet is what is the alternative fuel for air travel? Nothing. We've seen some people trying some solo plane, but how to fly 500 people differently. I don't think there's a solution yet on this. So therefore, this is also in that same National Academy Engineer, they said, we got to be thinking about this. So I don't know who's thinking there, but there are certainly researchers thinking about it. I'll stop here. Maybe I should mention one more, the energy through fusion. To me, the lithium battery that we have in the computer, that can power our entire household, one individual household for 15 years. But of course, not like a lithium battery. But in that discussion we had in the US at that committee, if you have these lithium batteries connected and put in a big way, you can actually run a thermal power plant. It's just expensive. So that's why how important it is to have a breakthrough on battery, to change the whole the lifestyle and the energy needs is going to be another area. Okay, I'll stop there and talk a little bit about opportunities in finance. Money is important. We like to get money. I said that because of these various adaptation issues, climate resiliency issues, cost of the projects increases. And I also mentioned when I go and talk to the governments, they are not very happy to pay the cost of these extra adaptation. I think that is the situation. But we have some kind of money. We had CIF money, clean investment money, infrastructure finance. We have the GCF, Global Climate Fund, which is supposed to be about $100 billion. We have about $10 billion. Many people criticize this, you see in the UN discussions, but I'm okay. If we had $100 billion today, I don't think we could spend it. We don't have projects. When I was the ADB, we had a target of $1 billion, we made $2 billion mitigation, then we made $1 billion adaptation. But someone had given me $10 billion 6 months before, I couldn't spend it. I don't know how. So there is a lot of need to develop such projects. So even 10 billion to me is a lot of money. My final talk is now, therefore, the way forwards. This is just some sharing of views for discussions. So we have these cities as they are, and some infrastructure has already been built, and we will have more built in future. What can we do? What should we do? First, we need to look at we should retrofit, meaning we should see the existing infrastructure, whether they are climate proof, and if not, we need to make them climate proof. This is a huge investment. We have lots of gas pipeline, we have lots of roads near the coastal areas, on and on. So retrofitting is a huge business at the moment. And secondly, Asia will have more urban areas. You read in India, Prime Minister wants 100 smart cities. An urban area in a country like India, based on our study, is not adequate. We just need to create more urban areas because more people will want to live and will be living in the urban areas. And what do we do with the new one? I personally feel we should change the urban and the city strategy plan. Each country should look at its own urban plans, urban strategy, and change it to bring this into, and make cities as inclusive cities, like we said. Don't forget the poor. Green, clean, resilient. Talking about clean, the air pollution, the particulates. There'll be more people dying out of particulates than any other disease. Isn't that correct, Peter? More people will be dying out of particulates matter in the city, air pollution, than any other disease. And this is a very, very serious message. Smart cities. Use of technology, application, bring me food, bring me that, book my ticket, book my cinema, everything, the lifestyle of the young people will change. Everything will be smart. Actually, today I went to see some of these Korean cities, everything is, they can monitor today. And everything can be, I can control that particular unit just by sitting here. It's all IT there. Competitive cities. We should not forget that cities are competing. Singapore is competing with Hong Kong how to become the financial center. They've been very successful in the last 10, 15 years to bring the asset management work. Bangkok might compete with Manila. How can I bring more tourists? How can I have more people retired in Philippines? So, they are trying to be competitive also, and that is needed. We need to change the energy policy. We need to say, just like we did in ADB, we said we're going to have 90% of our, we will not have coal-fired power plant unless it's absolutely essential. It dropped to 10%, maybe one in a year or one in 2 years. We say we'll do more renewable. So this kind of country policy will help. It will say, I want to become efficient building. I want to level it. I don't give more than so much energy per square meter, and people will react to that. Create a new transport policy. I'm really disappointed with many of the transport job because the motorization continues to be increasing so fast over the public transport. In Japan, I can live without a car. In fact, people don't want to have a car. I'm finding, in Bangkok, you can actually live without a car, it looks like to me, but people need car for status maybe. In some South Asian country, I was told one girl didn't want to marry the boy because you don't even have a car. I mean, this mindset has to change. It's okay not to have a car, to go on a train. I think branding cities helps. Today, the branding concept is, for example, Yokohama, where I'm a senior advisor, they call Y-Port. We are a Yokohama port city. We are a model for that. New York is planning Plan My New York. Korea had this Songdo, which they want to call green city, so they'll plan like that. And Suzhou in China, they're saying now the Venice of the East. When I was here in Bangkok 40 years ago, Bangkok was called the Venice of the East, if I remember. That left you may remember. So branding does help so that people will be moving. The last thing I want to say is performance. We need to start looking at city performance differently. Today we say water has not been, electricity hasn't been provided, transport. It doesn't matter. You might provide transport, energy, etc., this part, but the city as a whole is not clean, the city was not livable. So we need to change the performance metrics based on these city priorities. And finally, so that we can have more discussion, I'm of the opinion that with Asia becoming the 50% of the global economy, with Asia cities driving the economy in future, with we living there, in 21st century, the Asian cities are the laboratory. It should be treated like an ecosystem. I really think we should have a city lab. I'm not talking out of friction. In MIT, they have already a sensible city lab. What they're doing is a space where you are able to see the interaction between the stakeholders, the people, the planners, the engineers, the natural scientists, the computer people, they all work. And why not? If it's a 15 million people city, I should be thinking about the city every day. It's not just one plan and then let this plan be implemented. And MIT has this very interesting MIT Sensible City Lab. They call SENSE, S-E-N-S-E, Able City Lab. It's all IT related. And it seeks to create a kind of environment to bring in the lots of diverse fields. As I say again, the urban planning, architecture design, engineering, computer science, natural science, economists, to capture the multidisciplinary nature and design application services sector so the quality of the life in the city will be better. And Singapore is always a fascinating city, and they immediately have a program now. NUS has a program with MIT, and they have a $35 million lab, a new research center in Singapore. And maybe Asian Institute of Technology, Probably needs a urban lab. Detlef, there's something for your urban knowledge to create one like that. Let me stop here, I think. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. The reason I stop is I want to have some questions so that I learn from you.
Test. We have 4 microphones for your questions. This side and in the middle.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Lohani. It's very informative talk. And also you give all the figures and we get some idea what it is. I would like to share my view, not the question. I agree with you all the information. I would like to share my view about the climate change, especially in the city. The cost of the climate change in the city, I think you mentioned that is the emission. I think the major emission from the city is from the cars. The car which is used the fuel, the fossil fuel that give a big emissions. So from my experience with the power generation business, we have the power plant generated by natural gas. It costs a lot. It costs roughly about 10.5 cents per kilowatt hour. We have the project of the hydropower project. It costs about half. It's a 5.5 cents US cent per kilowatt hours. 2 or 3 years ago, I have the idea that this wouldn't be economic in the future. And AIT and Colorado State University have a joint project. What I use this name is alternative energy. One of the source of the alternative energy is to use sunshine, solar. So we had the agreement with CSU, AIT and CSU, to cooperate in the research in the field of the solar is PV. So Colorado State University, they have a very good research program. They use, instead of silicon, they use the cadmium perlite, which is more efficient and also cost less. So I went to visit Colorado State University several times, off and on. The last December, I met the head of the research over there. They gave me some figure which is very interesting. They said the cost of the production of the PV before is about maybe 8 cents or 9 cents per kilowatt hour. Now they can produce about 4.35 cents per kilowatt hours. And their plan, the projection in the next 5 years, it will come less than 2 cents per kilowatt hour. Yeah. So this will change the fuel consumption landscape in the future. That's what they would like to see. So I asked AIT to invite Professor Sampath, the director of this research, to come to AIT. And he will give a talk in May 16 this year. So they will give a talk at AIT about his research, and he will talk about the future of the landscape of the energy consumption. So this is I would like to give this to everybody. This is a good opportunity to AIT to do in this kind of research. I think as a private sector, we are willing to help. This is the program at AIT. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Very, very good insight. I fully agree. There are three things happening in the solar along the line. You said the panel cost has come so down, it's going to be cheap. It is very common now in terms of pilot scale to have your own house completely on solar, and then at night you use that to charge your electric car. It's possible in my house in Nepal because there's a lot of shortage of electricity. My house is fully solar. At night I can charge the car. It is possible, as Dr. Subin said. The trend is also now how we can ask more and more people to move into the solar so that they can be independent, and the excess they have, like in Germany and other places, you can put it back to the grid. We need a policy for that, which many countries don't have it. Frankly, as Dr. Subin said, it'll be a nice AIT itself is a good place to experiment. We can have all the corridors with panel, all the parking lots with panel. We don't need to spend money on this. The way it works is nowadays, ESCOs. You call a private investors to come. Our bill in AIT is about, I was told, 45 million baht a year. They will come and install everything. And if our bill every year goes down, let's say 15 million baht or 30 million, then we pay 15 million baht to the guys. And the next 10 years is covered. So it's paid against the electricity bill. And this is a very viable project today. At night, we can charge our car. So this campus could be a good live experiment already. Fully, thank you very much for sharing that knowledge to us. Yes, madam.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Dr. Lohani, for these great opportunities. Before I go to my questions, let me introduce myself. My name is Melia. I'm from Indonesia. I'm one of the participants for the UN Winter School. Okay, actually, this is really interesting topics for our lecture today. And talking about climate resilience, I'm aware that this has really close relations to the adaptation and climate adaptation, something like that. So my first question is gonna be, well, actually I have two questions here, and it is very qualitative and also very subjective. So my first question goes to, what is the adaptation and mitigation strategies based on your own experience or based on your own opinion that is really more sufficient for to be implemented in Asia? That was my first question. Okay, and also this is just to make it like specifically, I would like to ask about the adaptation and mitigation strategies in terms of energy. Okay, and the second one, I recall that, sorry, you were mentioning about fusion energy, right? Fusion. Then it reminds me of the nuclear energy actually, and I would like to talking about this controversial issue actually. So, based on your opinion, what do you think about using the nuclear energy to be implemented in Asia? Because we know that some people think that this is like very harmful, something like that, but some people also think that this is like a very great opportunities to be implemented for tackling the climate change impacts afterwards. So that was two of my questions. I would like to take this opportunity for thanking you for this great opportunity as well. Thank you very much.
Let me get a few more and then I address them all. Is that back?
Okay. Thank you so much for such an entertaining and engaging talk today. I am Mimansha Joshi and I'm representing Thailand Greenhouse Gas Management Organization. My first question is related to the opportunities, the financing opportunities that are available. So there are many choices, smart choices in financing right now. For example, green bonds that are being very attractive in the capital markets recently. So how do you think these kind of mechanisms can be introduced and implemented in least developed countries and also developing countries and cities? And my second question is...
Sorry, what is the word? Greenhouse? What is
green
that?
bonds.
Green bonds. Oh, okay. I know that. Yeah.
Okay. And my second question is related to the Southeast Asia. As it's been said in one of the recent ADB reports that they're the fastest growing region in the world, the Southeast Asia, and they have a continued reliance on the carbon for energy generation. So they recommended that carbon markets are the best choice for mitigation. What, according to your opinion, can be another alternative for mitigation other than carbon markets?
Okay. Let me take this tip before I forget. After some age, you forget quite a few things. First, the lady from Indonesia, thanking for... You said 2 questions, looks like to me many questions, but let me try to address all of them. Let me first repeat the question so that I understand. Your first question is, what is the adaptation and mitigation strategy that one should take in the country? First on the mitigation, one good guideline at this moment is, starting point, is the Paris Agreement. Each country has made INDC. Say, I commit to reduce so many percentage of CO2. At one time, many years ago, I think 2 years ago, Indonesia said 26%. I have to check the latest Paris Agreement. So if you say, I want to reduce 26% of the CO2 from what is today, or what to the 1990 level, then you start making the strategy. How do I do this? You can do it by simply saying, I'm not going to build any more coal-fired power plant, I'm going to close some energy efficiency. Whole lot of strategy could be developed. And people have done that, countries have done that. It's easy. I'm going to increase the renewables, I'm going to take all the industries, I'm going to give you only so much energy so that they will put solar. A whole lot of things can be done on that. So personally, the most important thing is the willingness and set a target and the answer. On the adaptation side, I think to me one of the most important principle or the regulatory requirement that's needed is to make sure that all investment projects, all, go for climate screening. And if you did that, whether it's energy, transport, urban, any infrastructure, irrigation, if you require that, it will automatically say what will be the impact of climate change on that, and then you will be able to climate proof it. So that is one of the most powerful. And 6 months ago at the Asian Development, that's exactly what we did. We said all projects need climate screening so that we'll know the adaptation requirement for it. That's what I would do. Second question is, you talk about fusion. Yeah, fusion is not as risky as the real nuclear. We're talking about in fusion trying to generate enough energy so that you can turn them into hydrogen energy and so on, and fuel cell, etc. But it's still at the experimental stage. And the scientists in that meeting told us that they are doing it again. There was a time when they spent a lot of money in 70s, 80s, and nothing happened. They gave up. And now again they are bringing in once again. So we want to see success. A nuclear. Do you want to do nuclear or not? This is, again, a policy issue. There are countries which are nuclear, India, China, Pakistan. And the countries which are thinking, or which were thinking, And countries who are really in the middle to think whether I need ones are, of course, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam. It is all in their discussion at the moment. It was there, it is now. After the Japan incident, everybody put on hold. If something really positive, something doable comes up, they may. But when I was the ADB, our policy was simple. We will not fund nuclear power plants simply because we said, look, we don't know how to do this. That was a nice way of putting it. Yeah. The other one from the lady, green bond. Again, when I was at ADB, I did 2 green bonds, one on the climate change bond. It really, and I also did the water bond, both in Japan. The advantage of this in doing it is, then I had this money, which was about, let's say, $200 million for climate bond, which I could use only for the climate project. So in some organization where you have resource difficulty of getting budgetary allocation, it helps. You can only be spent on that. The water one that we did could only be used for water projects. So this is one way to ensure some water projects, some climate change projects will continue to happen. And during my time, I did 2. In fact, it was very difficult for me to push the first one. I was one time the finance vice president, so I had the authority, and I told our treasury people, I want to do a green bond. They were very hard on me. They said, sir, we've never done it. We don't know how to do this. So I said, you've never done it, we're going to do one now. So I could do that. If I was not the vice president of finance, I probably couldn't do it. But it happened. And now today, it's a big market. There's about $1 trillion green bond. The IFC does a lot more than World Bank and ADB together. You go to the website, you will see so many. But the question comes in, there are 2 types of views on this. Some people say, it's putting old wine in new bottle. People say, oh, we still go to the market, raise the money, people buy it, coupon, there's still 4% coupon, you may pay it, but it is designated. Some people love it, some people don't love it. The other side to me, the passionate side is, I was in Japan doing this water bond, and then I met a very elderly, this is the structure that is used in Japan is the uridashi structure. I don't know whether you know this. It means Japan has one of the best retail arrangement to buy the bond. Most of the time when you float bonds, you need $100,000 to buy. The investors already capture this. Only the banks can buy it, only rich can buy it. In Japan, even an individual can buy it. It's called the uridashi structure. So I went and talked to the lady after my speech. Why do you want to buy this? She said, it's a water bond. In 1990, 2008, I lost a lot of money on many bonds I bought. Junk bonds she bought, and she lost money. High yield bonds. In this case, she was very elderly. Even if I lose money, at least for a good cause. I was very passionate. Very moved on this. So there are people like that who are buying those kind of bonds, but these bonds still give you money. If you buy World Bank, ADB, IFC bonds like that, they give you the proper coupon. So people like us, why not? I'm going to get 4% for this bond, I'm going to get 4% from this bond, I better buy green bonds. So that's the way it is, but to me it has helped very much in allocating these resources for a cause. Your question on carbon market. I was in Kyoto Protocol. That's where this whole carbon market started, 1997. Those of you who remember that, there was an Annex 1, which means the reduction of the emission was only to be done by the developed country. And the developed country says, okay, we agree, but we cannot do this in our own countries. Therefore, the arrangement was made that you can do this in other countries and pay for it. That's how the carbon market came in, the CDM, Clean Development Mechanism, came in. And for a while, the carbon market went very well. In ADB, I established 2 carbon funds together with my colleagues. I think, Bobby, you were still there, I guess. One until 2012, that's where the Kyoto Protocol would end, and one beyond. Very useful. Whenever we had projects where we could have low carbon technology, we could buy the CO2 and make the project cheaper. But then came a time when this carbon was treated by the investment banker like a commodity, like gold, silver, etc. And these guys started trading it. We started making money. There was a future on carbon and so on. It didn't help the planet, but they made a lot of money. And now today the carbon market is almost collapsed, right? And the Paris Agreement does not include the world CDM, if I remember right, if I read it right. It only says, please use some new instrument. The only future I see of the carbon business now is within the country. China said they're going to introduce this. There's a recent paper that has come in. It may help to introduce this within the US. It is okay to introduce this within the country so that you will be able to go more and more efficient. And there's the other side of this. Some countries think this, in future, what would happen if there's a global price of carbon? I'm one of those who would like to have a price on carbon. The Paris Agreement did not do that because it's too complex. If there was a price of carbon, the renewables will be cheaper, you will get enough money to put in where it needs to be. But that is too complex an issue, it didn't happen. But I still believe the countries should look into inside, within this country, to see whether they can create one carbon market themselves. It will also help to bring in new technology, new innovations, make you even more efficient and competitive in future. So that's my view on the carbon. Now we move to the next question. Yes, please.
Thank you very much, Professor. My question is, most of the Asian cities, especially I tell that more than 99% is traditional city, not a smart city, according to your views and literature. And climate refugee victims who are taking shelter in urban areas, your points, you mentioned that more than 30% people now in urban areas. So what is your comments regarding urban crime and climate refugee victims?
Sorry, I didn't get that last point again. I'm a little cold, my hearing is not good today here.
Climate refugee victim regarding urban poor and urban crime.
Urban climate, second word?
Urban refugee, climate refugee.
Urban refugee, okay, I got it. Yeah, I said it correct, that, pardon my ear today. Yes, I did say that in some cities, 30, 40, 50% are urban slums. And I also said that more than 2 million people, these poor, could be affected by the climate change. And the question is whether we have to make them refugee, or are they refugee? These are the two questions. First, to me, why should they be refugee? Why should we don't take care of these people? If the city is so rich, as I said, we should take care of the poor people as well. They are part of that city, right? The refugee question comes in very strong in the Pacific Island. When the whole island is going to sink, and some of these islands could, then it's a refugee issue. But they have to move. But these people, I hope, will not become the climate victim and they start moving to higher altitudes and other places. First and foremost is, please make this city inclusive. They have a role, they have a stake in the city. Singapore did it. I don't know if that's the best model. I don't think you could do it today, that model. But you have to still find a participatory way of including them and make it inclusive. Take care of those people. And there are some views coming in, if they are settling in a floodplain where they should not be, moving them to a little bit better place is not a bad idea. And somebody should pay for this. Maybe cities should pay for this. Why not? They're the citizen of the country. We should look after those people. That's also coming as a view very clearly at this point in time. Look at this very city development. Look at some cities. in the early days, we didn't have flood in the city because we had floodplains. So we said, oh, this lake is for flood. This is for Bangkok. We had so many canals here. And what happened? They got filled up to the road. We started building this real estate in floodplains, which is supposed to be for when the flood comes to storage for some time. So we have actually completely forgotten the fact that we need to take care of those. And as a result, poor people are living in those kind of area. Most of the time they're in floodplains where they shouldn't be. They're at all riverside where they shouldn't be. And I think the resettlement expert like Dr. Lev Kamar, who were doing this here, the post-habitat, there are ways to take care of these people. And my view is we should take care. I don't want to call them refugee. I say we should take care of them, put it to a proper place. We can disagree. Yeah. Okay, next.
Sir, we have time for 2 more questions.
Oh, only 2? Okay.
Thank you very much for your valuable speak, Professor Lohani. I have 2 questions. My first question is about the estimation of carbon emission. Recently, I happened to read an interesting research. We know the current estimation of carbon emission is mostly based on the IPCC database and methodology, which is mostly like provided or from the database from US, the condition from US and Europe countries. And this research, they try to look into the real conditions in China, and for example, they consider the carbon containing in the cores used in China is much lower than that in US or in the recommended what.
Not working? Yeah, you can come here and speak from here, yeah. So that I can hear better too.
So, surprisingly, their conclusion tell us that maybe the estimation of carbon emission in China may be 40% overestimated. So, do you think this kind of research is also valuable to be used or to be conducted in other Asian Pacific countries to understand more exactly where are we in the climate change? And do you think the ADP will may be interested in supporting this kind of studies or research? And my second question is, we know recently the COP21 gave the target of 2 degrees increase, or maybe ambitiously 1.5. But as you have mentioned in your speak, every country or every region has their specific conditions. And do you think to allocate this global target with the local conditions is going to be a major challenge for the researchers and scientists in the future?
So before we leave, tell me once again the first question. You were saying the carbon emission in China is estimated much higher than what you think it is?
According to the research, is possible.
And therefore?
Therefore, do you think, because we currently use the IPCC methodologies, which might be not suitable for the for our countries, the Asian Pacific regions. So do you think it's valuable work for the researchers and scientists to do the other research?
Well, let me take the second one first, okay? The easier one. I think let me repeat the question so that I understand. What you're saying in the Paris Agreement, 2 degrees, everybody started working for 2 degrees, and then the aspiration is we should try to go even to 1.5 degrees. And your question is, like I said, countries have INDCs, right? They have say, this is what I can do. And do I think this will meet the global target? Peter King and I saw this in Johor Bahru, a model that was run with the INDCs, and he saw that we're not going to reach 2 degrees. With the commitment they have made, you will not get 2 degrees centigrade. Full stop. What to talk about 1.5 degrees, right? And therefore, in the Paris Agreement, they mention every 5 years, please come up with more aspirations. More. So it is, therefore, I say, a very diplomatic document. When you say, yes, we have the countries agreeing, this is a major departure from Kyoto. In Kyoto, only the developed countries had to reduce it. This is the first time, and everybody is a part of this problem, and everybody needs to be a part of this solution. That's a very important change in the Paris Agreement. But these INDCs will not make it. And if you say, how are you going to meet it? They say, oh, every 5 years we expect them to come with higher and target and make it happen. We will see. That's all I can say, 5 years from now. Okay? The first one, a simple thing. Let's say that when there was no climate change, when I was teaching air pollution in this campus back in 1977, 78, we used to see this air pollution as air pollution. Like you have particulates, you have sulfur dioxide, you have all these various pollutants. We didn't, in those days, the climate change people, we didn't say you should reduce air pollution because of climate change. As Dr. Subin said, the pollution coming from the vehicles or the coal fire. I was co-chair to a study in China with a very great economist called Fan Gang, and we were asked to look by China as a part of the China Council for International Environment Development, to which I was a member. They asked us to look at how can China move into a green growth path. What we found out is simple. Why is there is a lot of pollution in Beijing? People say, oh, there are too many vehicles. Most of the pollution is because of the steel mill in another province, Hebei, where is 80-90% of the steel mills is concentrated in one place. That's what is bringing the most of the pollution down there. The solution one of the major solutions for Beijing is not target only vehicles. Of course, we need to do that, given the weather. We need to target that province. We need to close some of the old non-functioning power plants, which is fueling these industries. So that's not always, don't think that the city's pollution is because of that vehicles alone, which could be certainly a part of it, but not all because of that. Secondly, if there's a difference between the data between IPCC and IPCC is not God, IPCC has a methodology. What it needs is you need to go and monitor. If you want to prove IPCC wrong, I'll put a lot of monitoring stations, monitor air pollution in the old ways. Here's the particular slab, PM10, PM2.5, and tell them our actual data, without cheating the data, of course. Tell them our data, actual data shows, look, we disagree with you. And IPCC also likes comment like that, so they change their methodology from time to time. But you need to have some really valid data. I also hear the other side of the story. Some people say China never gives us the real data, so we don't know. I don't know what's true. But the most important thing to do as a scientist, technocrat is let's go and monitor. It's doable. It costs money, but it's doable. Will ADB fund it? I'm not in ADB anymore, but we have lots of projects funded in China in the past. China is one of our, I think still we're doing about $2 billion a year. Environment is a big program. We'll let them talk to ADB. I'm no longer with ADB. 6 months already away. But they may fund if you go with a good proposal. Okay, we have one more question or finish? Okay, last question.
Morning, Dr. Lohani, and thank you very much for your brilliant presentation. Not the first time I hear you, but this was really a great one, and probably the most inspiring I've had a chance to hear on the smart cities and the challenges and the opportunities. You made it look quite simple, and you know, there are challenges, but you also brought the opportunities, some solutions. So I just wish that you would run for one of the large Asian cities for mayor and be able to implement all those good solutions that you have been talking about. And I think you would have a lot of electors here that would support you. Your experience in ADB is quite unique indeed, and thanks for sharing it. You mentioned about the challenges and also the opportunities, waste to energy. And municipalities, large municipalities, mega cities in Asia have a huge difficulty to handle their municipal waste. And it's been a talk for decades. And I remember in the early 90s, when I came to Thailand, there was a plan that was supposed to be implemented in Chiang Mai, and the project collapsed, mainly because of population opposition to this kind of technology. Not in my backyard. Do it wherever you like, but not in my backyard. That's the attitude of most people. Western countries, Singapore, have used modern technologies to transform those waste into energy. And I'm still puzzled why, except maybe for Singapore and some other cities in Eastern Asia, that there's still so little which has been done for the management of those waste, the transformation of those waste into energy, because they represent a huge resource. But if you were the mayor of one of those large cities, what would you propose for solving this huge problem of waste?
Okay, thank you very, very good question. Interesting, I like it, because we used to run mayors' forums, so I know a lot of mayors. First thing, I'm going to make you happy by saying I'm not going to run as a mayor. Because mayors have usually a lifespan of how many, 3 years, 5 years? How long you get elected, 5 years? And I don't want a 5 years plan for the city. It doesn't work. You need a 25 years, 50 years vision. I have seen many mayors, therefore, who would do what I need to do for the next 5 years to win my next election. That's not the kind of mayor we want. And this is a problem. Therefore, first thing is, don't make mayors too powerful or make citizens more powerful. Have a plan which cannot be changed by the mayor, because his life is only 5 years. I've seen a plan. We had helped develop a plan. Let's put this as a nice green park for the people. During one mayor's thing, it became a shopping mall. Because that's what I make, whatever is the reason. So the point is, I think it's not a rocket science. If we generate waste, let's say Thailand with this kind of economy will probably generate about 1.5 kilo per person waste, I would think. And the waste categories change. If you're a low development country, it's more vegetable. Here is plastic bottle, papers, etc. It's really have enough calorific values to make these waste turn to energy. It's viable. It needs to be done, which we know. And it cannot be done because of what you said, NIMBY, not in my backyard. And that's where the leadership comes. Someone has to take the decision, say this is needed for the city, we have to do it. Like many things. There are so many things we don't like it, but for the sake of a community, you do it. My view always has been, we need to do stakeholder consultation, citizen view is important. In ADB we had a system, even if one person didn't complain, Bob, you were the champion of that, even if one person didn't like it, I couldn't do the project. Whereas I know the head of a state of United States got elected with 51% vote. I don't know, you have to find some good democratic rules to make decisions. One person in ADB means we have to stop the project. So I think the point I'm trying to make is you need to take leadership, you need to make decisions on it, You need to explain to people. If people are affected, we need to pay the compensation. If he says, I'm going to be so close to this west, I can't live in this one, it's okay. Like give him a new house. It's okay. That's leadership. That's what Singapore done. Okay, yes, my citizen is affected. The person doesn't want next to the west to energy plant. Okay, I buy this, let this building be a part of this, and pay for it. Pay for it. I think you just need to make that kind of decision. Therefore, I won't be a mayor, you see. Okay, any more?
At this point, sir, we would like to invite you to take your seat.
Okay,
on
I'll do what you say. Yeah.
the chair on stage. Over there.